The China State seems away. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you don't. I need a dose of sugar this morning.
Welcome everyone. Before we begin, I want to do a little bit of a acknowledgement that as we begin our first meeting in this new community center, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. We honor the enduring connection the Squamish people have to this land and their stewardship of these lands and waters since time immemorial. As an advisory committee of Bowen Island Municipality, we recognize our responsibility to contribute meaningfully to reconciliation. And as you all know, one of our intentions is to follow the principles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and to ensure that these principles are reflected in our work, our relationships, and our decision making. So may this new space be one where respectful dialogue, inclusion, and shared learning guide us to service our community. So we can start off with our agenda. Everybody has a copy of the agenda. I'd like to. Okay, sorry. Oh yeah, sorry, that's right. Okay, somebody said something. Okay. Are there any? Everybody has got a copy. We got the agenda the other day. Does anybody have any items they'd like to add to the agenda? Okay. So recommendation that the community plan committee approve the agenda for our April 11th, 2025 meeting.
This is a second meeting.
Sure. Okay. All in favor? You realize I've only done this stuff once. Okay.
You guys are the land to go.
Okay. Okay, so now moving on to item 2, our adoption of our minutes. So our last meeting was February 25th. And hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the minutes. Any questions or comments before we move to a recommendation? Okay. The recommendation is that the minutes of our official community plan search committee meeting held February 25th, 2025 be adopted. Good. Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
There are no public in Zoom and there is no public in the room.
Okay. Can I ask who isn't? So with us today is Xerxes. Xerxes is our new planner 1. He came to us from the district of Lillooet most recently, and he started on April 1st, so our second day in the building. Yeah, so he's here replacing Sophia.
Welcome. And your name is?
And I am Daniel Martin. Okay.
Are you in the room?
Yeah, well, for the not for me, of course.
No.
Right, Janice?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, sure. I'll start. My name is Jim Crandalls. I'm one of the co-chairs of this committee. I know Xerxes, we met a couple days ago, so I'm Adam, as you remember.
Betty Morton.
That's the priest. David McCullum and the other co-chair.
Allison Morris, counselor. Kirsten Mark on the committee. Melanie Mason on the committee. Staff here. And then we'll have Counselor Jurgensen zooming in at some point.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
it's not. Okay. Number 4, business arising from the minutes. This is where we're gonna talk about both units, the process timeline and project status update. So Daniel, you want to take us through that?
Sure. This will come up, I'm sure this comes up again as we talk about the next few agenda items, but one of the things I want to go over was when we received the draft communication engagement plan, we circulated it to you guys. And one of the things I went back to the consultant with is just like, okay, how does this work? We don't have the engagement materials yet. What do you see timeline to make it work with the May?
Daniel, can I ask?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just the fans in here. It's
Yeah.
a little hard here in certain, so.
Okay. So I asked the consultants for a timeline of like when the materials would be produced, when we would see them. Are we able to, do we feel comfortable with the May 1st engagement launch? So this is what was provided, and I'll just go through it, and then I'm sure we can talk about it as we go into the other agenda items as well. So we are April 11th to start here, so us to provide feedback on the communication improvement plan. And so then we will take the comments that were circulated by email already that we have, and we will collect them with any comments from this meeting to send to the consultant in one batch. So then the Macklin unit has April 16th, so discussing the proposed changes to staff, so that's Wednesday. So we could take any of the people leave the meeting today and think, oh, wait, they're up late on Saturday night. They think, oh, here's another thought I want to share. Figure the summit as well then. It's in the pros and cons that we've discussed with staff. The proposed change is April 16th. Following that, Macklin will start by drafting the survey, shaping engagement questions, materials designed around the questions. And so one of the things you see on the agenda today is we had a topic to discuss the communication engagement plan is one, and then actually a topic to discuss the engagement material itself. So we thought we'll do them both at once. We'll say, this is based on the plan we have, these are our comments, and then this is what we want to make sure happens in the materials themselves. So I know we got comments from some members already, we provide that in advance and say these are things you want to do. And then we're gearing up. So we have a scheduled April 28th steering committee meeting, which we scheduled to be by Zoom. It's like less time for people involved, but April 28th. So then Macklin said by the 24th, they will share the drafts of the materials with us for us to provide comment at that 28th meeting. And then the other piece I told them was, well, if you want something to appear May 1st in the undercurrent, you actually need to post it. We need to get it to the undercurrent meeting before. So we had a timeline there too of them providing materials to appear in the undercurrent. That's an April time. So then after the 28th, they say by the 30th, they'll address the revisions on the draft engagement materials, sent proofs for final approval May 2nd, which there is like a challenge here too, where it says by May 2nd and then they'll launch May 1st. Yeah. And then they're looking to actually print materials through the 9th to be there for the public engagement pop-up on May 10th. So looking to that those initial public engagements May 10th, and then they would hand off the engagement kit and materials for us to run additional engagement events in subsequent weeks that we talked about in this meeting. The other one they've got scheduled May 22nd is a walk led by Macklin.
So that we all meet Jane, right? All meet Jane.
So what exactly is the difference between a pop-up and having a community, inviting everybody to a town, to tell them what the OCP is all about?
Yeah, I mean, that might be when we talk about the engagement, like I think in their engagement plan, they'll define a pop-up being like, yeah, it's like a kiosk.
Yeah, but
I think the advantage to that is that people can just pop by, get whatever information they need, or ask whatever questions they have and then be gone. Rather than when you have a great big meeting.
no, I wasn't thinking meeting.
Yeah.
I was thinking of an open house, but in here,
Right.
for the same number of hours, it's a place
Yeah.
to come, be in the dry if it rains.
Yeah.
Right, and all that stuff and answering questions. And then, of course, somebody's raised a question about it. So pop-up to me means sort of temporary. It's I've been looking at other people's news, like North Van's having a big open house in their hall or somewhere for the OCP, for their OCP. I mean, you got people for each, but anyhow, a pop-up to me doesn't seem to be as formative for the general public. A launch
This would be up, right? This is the idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, something that, is it in their plan as much? I think partly because this wasn't here when we started writing the plan, is that we would be trying to have a permanent presence of OCP material here during like municipal hours. Since we're here, it's like, I don't know what will happen. It could be, it's a poster up front, say, come to the building counter where a planner is available to come and talk to you about the OCP. Anytime during working hours, that means our students essentially be available, like do that same speed with people.
Can I suggest that we note that and when we go to the other items so that we can finish off the one that we're on, just in case we get, because I can see we're gonna get sidetracked on this one.
It's a rabbit hole.
So, yeah.
It's a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, back to the timeline that they identified. Anybody have any questions for Ben? Last time, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are we planning just like whenever they share anything, it just gets shipped out to us and then?
Yeah, I think based on that, like if they're saying they'll get it to me by the 24th, yeah, I would again send it out for comment. So we can start with one comment like we did this time before the 28th.
Are you able to share that timeline with us, just so?
Yes, it's actually in the agenda.
It's in the package?
Yeah.
Cause all this lots of time. What's that?
The timeline, and then about the engagement goes through the summer, that, so you show that slide as a reminder.
Well, I mean, essentially what they, it's not gonna swim. I mean, so phase 2 was like gather ideas, explore options, spring and summer 2025, but they essentially had like that disengagement period. And then from that, it's like what we heard is prepared to say like, this is what we heard in this round. And then it's in the, I'm sorry, I don't have it over. Yeah, so big broad engagement is what, maybe I'll share this, right? All right, so phase 2 tasks. So phase 1 tasks ends with care engagement and communication plans. We're gonna have for phase 2 plans, prepare engagement materials. So that's what we have with the April 24th deadline. Set up and test online engagement tools. So again, that's like that last week of April. Big broad engagement proposed for May. Phase 2 engagement report. So what we heard report. Coming back, and then it's draft visions, goals, and emerging policy options. Formulate scenarios and options.
So that what we heard report, that'll largely be the survey and then comments we get at the
Yeah.
survey.
Yeah.
so maybe, sorry, is there any other question before I ask? It helps me or it makes me think, what are the risks of some things if we go ahead? But what do you think would be the risks of if, I don't know, we get something not 100%?
Yeah.
Or it looks a little rushed?
Yeah.
In your view, what do you think the risks would be?
I mean, the risks would be, I guess, it's like one, we feel like we haven't really got enough information. I guess risk would be like losing the community space in the process. I guess they feel like they're not adequately engaged, right? That's the number one big risk of anything.
And
Yeah.
so on that, like, it does make me wonder that it is a launch. And the idea is to drum up the interest, et cetera.
Yeah.
In your experience with other kind of programs like this, whatnot, is that, like, I would think that it's not a huge risk at this point because we're trying to get interest engaged. I guess the risks might be if, for whatever reason, we're out to lunch in our survey or something and people, what are they doing?
Yeah.
But so far, I don't feel like it would be like that. I don't have a great sense. So that would be my only fear. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a bit of a control freak. I like to have control over everything before it's all done. But then trying to look at the risk of, you know, if we don't do it now, it seems like we're gonna lose a lot of time.
That's the balancing of the risks, right? The other risk is like, well, if it's not in May and it's not early June, you know, the risk is if you do all your engagement in July, your feedback is like, well, you know, people are summer, people are gone, this isn't real engagement. It's not the same schedule of people's lives. And then it's like September, and then your risk is now we're not done to take this council to.
But we could do June.
like, that's what I start to wonder is like, oh, well, maybe the survey is May till. You know, I mean, they get nervous, I'm sure the consultants get nervous, everything starts to slither a little bit, and it's like, well, everything's 2 weeks longer, but then I start to go, well, maybe it's still launch it, like, surveys still launch in May. Maybe say, well, let's hold it, let's actually do it, but let's extend.
I think May isn't a great time because also committees are still meeting and things really do slow down come June. And businesses also start to get really busy in June and they'll still have time in May to weigh in on the OCP.
June is December, it just disappeared.
Well, beginning part of June, like I'm just nervous, I think like Jim is about. The timeline is so tight to see everything. I mean, keep for that timeline for those documents, but maybe push it a week. And May the 10th is an extremely busy day.
I don't,
Other community stuff going on.
correct me if I'm wrong, but like in this first survey, we're not developing a huge amount of like material.
No.
It's
Yeah,
mostly like. Information
Introduction to the
sharing,
process.
context setting, and then getting some
That's
like
right.
initial direction.
This is like the first blush.
Yeah.
I think you probably, you know, you're doing a deeper dive when you get into the first draft.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting into more what you like and what you don't like, and it becomes a little bit richer. I mean, if the issue is that we don't get to see it before, I'm kind of surprised that you're kind of leaving it as late as they are to sort of share it with us. Can we maybe put some pressure on McElhaney to actually share their draft earlier?
Well, of the draft materials they'll produce, if I'm assuming there's some sort of like. 2-page brief, maybe about like the OCP or something. I think the questions are gonna be important.
Yes.
Like, if you recall some of the metro engagement, there was the perception that those questions were leading or. Like, I think how questions are phrased is gonna be like really quite important.
Yeah.
And to Jim's point, like. Since this is such an early stage of the process, like I think that we should have a pretty. Like narrow what we're asking and not asking too much stuff, cause I'm not sure we'll have the time to like. I think there's a risk of like, if we have a big broad survey right off the hop that it's.
Yeah.
Well,
And you know, we experienced with another plan where consultants had done a survey. The survey was like a few questions that were very open-ended. And so essentially the survey responses were all like people had written like, you know, like documents, and then it's like, well, what are we doing with this information now? It's like, well, how are we actually turning that into anything? Yeah.
I just wonder how flexible McElhaney is in reality, because like our office architects or planners, they constantly adjust. So if they have like 3 or 4 of these OCP reviews going, they just have to shuffle things. I mean, it's not, I don't think the process should be all about convenience for McElhaney. So maybe just ask them, how did you deal with it? Yeah. You know?
so I mean, going back to the timeline, I would rather put pressure on McElhaney to deliver us the materials earlier than put pressure on us to then push the timeline out. It's kind of my, it's my 2 cents.
This is April 11th. And they're certainly they're not gonna have our input from today, they say on April 16th, which could be got a weekend, you know. They're gonna start drafting the survey.
They're gonna start drafting the
That's what
survey.
it says.
So I think maybe they could start drafting the survey before, I mean, like, even if you're gonna start drafting. I don't know, like, I don't,
Lamborghini's done 100 of these, like they have, they're fully from stock buckets.
like, we're not really reinventing the wheel too much here either. There's some community nuances on Bowen Island, but it,
What are your priorities?
yeah, like, I don't mean to be flip. Are we being recorded? I will be flip, and forgive me, but it's not like you're writing a thesis here. Like, you could probably do it fairly quickly if you're really clear on what information you're trying to gather and understanding the culture of the island, which we spent a lot of time with McElhaney already explaining. So that's my personal opinion. I think we can pressure them to just produce even a draft earlier for us. And then if we are committed to then turning around our comments fairly quickly, let's accelerate it on the back end rather than as a launch.
I agree, if it's possible.
You know, this is just you start with the vision, you know, and you have to listen to people. So how can it be, you don't need to have the full draft, you know?
Yeah, and to be honest, I actually think what I'm gonna be looking at is kind of framing, what is an OCP? What information are we looking for, and to keep it tight and keep people focused? And to make sure that, you know, just as a sidebar, with my other volunteer position on a committee, we had consultants that helped us with an engagement. And the information we got was so broad and so voluminous. It really didn't give us clear direction as to what we should be doing and focusing on. It was frustrating. So I mean, what I'm looking for is how tight are they in terms of saying to people, this is the purpose, this is what we're looking for. And let's get excited about it, but kind of really frame it well. And then making sure then the questions are really driving true data that we can then action.
If you have a few simple questions, that's enough for people to think about and start problems. It's like the wrong picture, it's the overall, it's the vision, right? You have to listen at least to what people want to say, so it's easy.
Oh, I don't want to pass it through the testing. It's just the videos, you know, what do people are that?
Yeah, it's easy, you just ask them, what do you think about
I
it?
suggest instead of trying to guess what the content is more focus on what are our risks of doing this now or waiting a few weeks. And what I'm hearing from a couple of folks for sure is say, let's start this now. The risks are a little bit less because where we're at in the stage of the process. Are there others who feel the opposite?
No, sorry.
No, we.
Well, my comment is that I'm supportive getting the process started sooner rather than later, because I think there's an air of positivity, honestly, in the community right now with the community center opening.
Yeah.
I think if we could use this as a bit of a hub for, I think we
Yeah.
could just, you know, make an
Can
opportunity.
we fly the Canadian flag too? Because then we're all patriotic.
Right there in the
That's
corner.
right, yeah.
You know, like, they're curious about what they're doing, they're curious.
Oh, yeah,
about
totally,
it,
totally.
And I think there's been
Spring,
so
everyone's
much
happy.
conversation about this space as well, that when you come in, actually see it's a really positive space, like it's actually, and I think when people see what the community can do, the long-term plan is being implemented. I think it could help us really launch it successfully.
We'll see, and we'll also be post-election. I think there's a lot of distraction going on right now because of the election. So it'll be post-election and all of a sudden, yeah, we're set in terms of leadership for Canada and okay, now let's look at the community. Yeah, it'd be a good time.
So Melanie, pull the balloons out.
Totally.
But the other comment I wanted to make though is I'm really curious to see what we get back from this first survey, because I do think we've had another churn in the community, and there's a lot more younger families that come on board.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what people's comments are going to be if they agree with the current vision. I think there could be some, not surprises, but new information that maybe some perspectives.
And to that point, I really like to see so many of the sort of the presence being around, childcare and, family-oriented activities to make sure that you're capturing those young families and people who maybe just recently to the island, recently, post-COVID.
So then if we kept to this schedule then, the only thing that made me sort of post here, was it April 24th, in the undercurrent, it's gonna be, like, we can't go back after that, right? So once it's out there, it's out there, so that would be the only, like if what we get in we have, how much time do we have, like literally days between the two, like.
What's the undercurrent supposed to be? Is it just an?
And then but yeah. So we put it, like, fill out
Yeah.
a survey, I don't know what else.
I'm wondering, like, is there something like a letter to the editor from the co-chairs to like explain more, like provide more information?
Oh, like, so why are we doing an OCP update?
Yeah.
Letter.
And like, we're about to launch this thing, include the date, this is why we're doing this. Like, I think any sort of contextual information we provide beyond just like the hours of operation for a pop-up, or the survey, like,
Yeah, and assuming that everybody knows what's and why.
yeah, you know, I think that would be probably pretty helpful.
We can help to
So say the story.
You want me to write it?
It's just.
No, they're supposedly writing a piece on why there's an OCP being done. That could be a, you know, just a launch article. It might have to be a little bit shorter than the piece. To highlight surveys.
Essentially, just.
So again, if we're going back to like our concern being, what does this survey look like and are we ready? I'd like to propose that they give us the draft by April 18th. For providing comments by the 16th. Let's hope that they're starting to draft it now and they can incorporate any of our comments by the 18th. That gives us the weekend to look at it. And that we'll be committed to giving them our comments back on the draft by the 21st.
What I was kind of looking at is more, is there a point at which we say, we're not ready, hold on, we're gonna delay this a month? And so, in other words, we see something and we go, oh yeah, we got something to work here. This is, you know, fiddling as opposed to, wait a minute, we were expecting something totally different. There's no way we can make up this time to be able to do that. That was my sort of thinking and concern.
So,
But is that date?
you know what, Jim, I think like, I know you work with the port and I worked in telecom. Whenever you're launching a consultation and if it's ever rushed, and sometimes your projects are controversial. So you're always like, oh my God, do we have it right? Because it can be disastrous.
Yeah.
But this is an OCP.
No, I'm more worried about the comfort of a launch within this, to make sure that there is comfort around this table. The last thing I would like us to do is say, we shouldn't have done that. You know, and it's like, we weren't ready, we didn't see anything. So for me, all I'm saying is, you know, once you're putting that, your launch out, you've launched.
Well, we're pulling the pin on the 24th.
And I'm not saying that, like, I totally agree with, yeah, this is at this stage, the risks are low. But I would still like someone to see something, even if it's just Daniel to say, no, stop the breath. Something that just allows it to say, yeah, okay, we got something we can work with it here, we're not worried.
We would be able, like. You know, I'm trying to remember the undercurrent timelines, like if something's on May 1st, we can actually change it,
You could push it a bit closer.
like our timeline to reserve the space and have something for them, but then if it's like, oh, it's not, we could change it, be like, coming later in May, we'll be doing it.
Yeah.
Well, just, there's the ability for us to do that,
I just published a separate merge article again or something, so.
You know, I find the word survey that suggests like data collection, and that's typically for a planning organization. I think we should start far more less structured than that. Like we have, there's a vision statement, there's 9, you know, what called primary objectives. If you ask people just to read them and write something back, like they feel they can just write something. Because like, you know, McElhaney wants to have data collection and graphs and conclusions, but I think it's too early for that. I think a survey should be done after people have far more information. Where survey sounds to me like lots of bureaucrats at work. Instead of just something like, okay, this is the existing OCP, this is what our OCP is based on, the vision and the objectives, the principal objectives, I think they call them, and then just see how people want to respond. Then they don't feel caught in a system.
If I open up a document where I'm thinking like a paragraph, not, if I see something where I can just put it in buttons and say, I agree with this, I'm gonna do it, I'll do it on my phone, whatever.
Or ranking what's important to you.
But if I open up something, I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that later, and then I never do
But
it.
then people just thinking to themselves.
Like, you know, like, can I interrupt for a second? I think we're now starting to get into the content of the plan again. So
So
let's
back to
either
timeline.
back to timeline or at least park it saying, we're not sure, let's review the content of the plan and come back to.
My big-
Can I suggest that? I
My
think it
big
might be good.
concern is launching the survey before the launch event. I think the survey should be launched after the launch event.
Okay, so let's park this for now.
Just think launch
And
me
then
first, so this-
we'll get into the review of the plan itself so that we're all on the same page. Then we'll come back to that. Is that okay?
Yeah, so we can do the item 5.5, but sometimes that the business, so that can be better.
Okay. All right. Some great discussion. Okay, so this is, that we're on number 5. Yeah, yes.
Like, need to talk through the plan.
Yeah, so this is the draft communications engagement plan. And everybody would have seen a copy of it. We know that there was some comments from people. Eddie, you looked like you were.
No, that's fine, I'm
Okay.
just trying to find.
Okay. So Daniel, why don't you take us through that?
Alright, so what's in the agenda? The draft communication and engagement plan. The contents, it shows some background objectives. The objectives of the engagement is quite small. Engagement plan objectives, engagement philosophy, key issues, equity and accessibility, engagement with local First Nations, and then the second part is an engagement roadmap for the message development, target audience, awareness building, and marketing strategy, engagement, and then reporting and monitoring. I don't know when I might just skip through this part. This is sort of our ethics on participation, so. What goals are. Yeah, I think this is stuff we've seen before in the earlier stuff, so I'm just gonna go through, but. The key issue, the OCP must place equity at the forefront, reflect input from all interest holders. The engagement process must be accessible to all who want to engage.
Are we
So
gonna ask questions as we go along, or is then you're gonna run through the whole thing?
I think
if you have like specific questions on as I go through, maybe, otherwise go all the way through, and then if it's like a breaker discussion, maybe we'll save it till the end. Identifying here, some interest holders may be more vocal than others, but all voices need to be heard. Concerns may be expressed on housing security, economic security, transportation, but still those can only address a small part of them. So some of that's main solutions here is communicate the scope of an OCP clearly, so that some of that background work, like what does an OCP do? What's the purpose of it? And input will be received full-time residents, part-time residents, and visitors. Feedback from specific groups may be more or less applicable to different parts of the OCP. Including accessibility, so about supporting participation of everybody, evaluating inclusivity and work, and engaging with local First Nations. So that's something that staff have been doing constantly, and as we move forward into the next phase, again, we'll be engaging with the Squamish Nation and other local First Nations. Process. All right, engagement roadmap. So they have what's in this plan. Engagement will occur in 2 rounds. So the first round of engagement occurring from May 1st to May 1st and May 31st. To gather information and perspectives to inform a draft OCP. Second round occurring in the fall of 2025 to gather feedback on the draft OCP. Use marketing to create awareness of the OCP update process on engagement opportunities. Engaging a small community requires strategies that are accessible, locally relevant, and tailored to the dynamics of island life. Able to outline the awareness building and engagement methods the project team will use. Yeah, awareness building methods and then engagement methods. So we talk about press releases, social media, an updated project landing page on the BIM website, municipal e-news, press release, the undercurrent, in community posters, in-person events, pop-up engagement, in-person events, online survey, the James Walk, the interactive mapping that we tested last time, project email, and then additional volunteer run activities that we can discuss.
Can I start different? So.
Yeah.
These tools and tactics and these methods.
Yeah.
Is what we really need to have done before we launch, right? So that's sort of these are the things that they've suggested that in this plan that we're gonna have, and we need the content for all of these.
And that we're starting the draft next week.
Yeah.
Like, No, it's, I think they could be starting, like, please tell me that they've been starting to draft.
Oh,
things.
I gotta imagine some of those, or
Yeah.
at least outlines and stuff like that, but we're not going to see any of this until the date again.
Well,
So
The 24th before it was back down.
So. Going back to our previous, discussion where we were starting to get, these are the tools and tactics. This is in the plan. Yeah, this is what we don't like any of this, we need to say it right now. Okay. And you know, some of those we've already talked about, so I don't, personally, I don't have an issue, but can I stop? Does anybody have any issue with any of these tools or tactics?
The only two, from my perspective, that have risk are the pop-up. Like what that looks like, materials we have for that, and the survey.
Yeah.
The rest of it's just for information, sort of details.
So in terms of what part of,
Like what materials we'll have on hand.
Okay, what actually that's,
Because the goal for this is largely sharing information about the OCP, setting expectations, that sort of stuff. Like, I think it'll be important that that's clear and well done. People are gonna take that home. It's gonna sit on kitchen counters. Kind of be the starting point for a lot of folks, so I think that's like, if we have to prioritize asking McElhaney for some of these materials, I think it's the survey and some of the framing documents.
I think so too, and it's even if it's like, yeah, survey and yeah, stuff with the pop-up, even if it's like not graphically complete.
Yeah,
But it's
just,
like the text of it, right? Because I understand their timeline of like, you know, we need to finish it and have it graphically done and have it printed to have it done. And it's like, fair enough, but can we see the content?
because I think the framing is gonna be great, like.
Yeah. And you know, sorry, are you finished up? This is part of it. Like, and we know that with a lot of these materials, there's gonna be a repetition. So again, how they initially frame it, I'm really interested to see. And then, of course, what the questions look like. And yes, I think we should be seeing this in ahead. The only thing that is missing for me when I look at tools and tactics is there's very rich information with all of the committees that we have. And then we also have specific interest holders or, you know, services on the island. Like personally, when we're talking about a circular economy, we really should be meeting, I think, with Bowen Island Waste Management. Do, you know, ask for maybe, I mean, I would be happy to do a presentation, talk about the OCP, host a bit of a dialogue, and then encourage a way for them to share their information. But, you know, when you think of tools and tactics, something that you could present to a committee, something that you could present to maybe a group.
but we're not meeting yet, right? So you're just saying that the materials just need to be,
Talk about like tools and tactics.
Yeah.
There isn't a tool there, I would say, that you could say, meet with the committee, something that you could share with the
oh,
committee.
you're saying add an additional
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tools
got
and
it.
tactics,
Yeah, yeah.
what is missing,
is
I think.
like a
Something like
timer or
an
something.
engagement toolkit.
It's an engagement toolkit for a small group,
got
either
it.
be a committee or an interest holder.
And I think it's pieces of the other tools that they've got, but just assembled differently.
Yeah.
Great.
And quite frankly, something that probably a member of the OCP steering committee could use.
Yeah.
To then host that. And again, I'll just continue on, like, you know, there's neighborhood associations, you know, like if I live in Blue Water, there isn't a lot of activation in the Blue Water neighborhood. But I live in Blue Water. I think there's others that live on that side of the island. Maybe we could host something at our house. Give me a toolkit that's going to help me maybe talk to a group and then give me the tools to then invite that input. So
I think, yes, fabulous idea. If we're trying to just focus McElhaney's efforts though in the near term, like. The survey though, like I think, you know, that type of engagement probably happens maybe after the survey window or towards the end of it, like start those types of things. I'm just thinking about like. If we're asking them for too much. Before that survey launch date, their ability to like do everything.
I do know, so what they're delivering in this is like pop-up engagement stuff, so like what they'll do is pop-up engagement. They want to then have it available for us to hold other events, but then it's almost like a subset of that is like That's great for, yeah, you know, they're gonna do it on the 10th, they'll be here. The next weekend, we can do one here, or maybe not Victoria Day weekend, but the weekend or something, you know, we can do other event, pop-up events like that. But then can there be a subset of that that's like, and then we're gonna go present to the CEC committee, or we'll go present to the like big pack group or something, or whatever the groups are, and it's like, okay, if I'm gonna do like a virtual meeting or a small table meeting, maybe I don't have like a, or like, here's the pop-up booth material, but it's like a subset of it.
Exactly.
I thought somewhere in here they said they were gonna prepare a kit for students for pop-up events, but I can't find.
Yeah, I think they mentioned.
We just wanna make sure that, yeah, that it works as a, like a table at an event, but it also works for like a more focused meeting.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to spend too much time on the time thing again though, but also I think a really good suggestion there is timing the launch of the survey to the pop-up.
Yeah.
Like, it gives us like, I don't know, like, a month is a lot to have a survey open. Like typically, we do it for 3 weeks. Maybe a little less.
Too long, people put it aside and then forget about it.
Well, especially if it's a fairly short survey.
Don't know.
But I mean, there is maybe a benefit, like it gives us a little bit more time. You launch it on the day of the pop-up, everything is kind of aligned.
Like if it launches, like if they have the 10th, which is the Saturday, and we say instead it's launching the Thursday or something, like, you know, that same, instead of the 1st, it's like the 8th. And then, but even if we wanted, it could extend, I guess, over the first week of June.
Yeah, I mean, you can push it, you could, like, if we're concerned about review and providing feedback and finalizing these materials, pushing it by like a week or whatever seems not so bad. It's just
So you're
like,
just saying compress it down.
no, like push the survey launch to the.
Of the survey launch, but the
Yeah.
launch of the
Yeah,
program
keep
launch,
that May
later,
10.
but the survey launch later.
Yeah, like, I just worry, because like when we do survey, like it took us like 6 months to write a survey.
Yeah.
And our last one, and you know, like, we're talking about doing this in like
Yeah.
a few days. Like,
So Adam, how specific are the questions in the first survey versus another survey?
typically not like they're not asking questions about content. Like really all you're trying to do like in this type of survey is like orientate yourself, like to your point, like do people.
What are the most pressing issues you think, you know, like, you're really introducing it, sort of like what, it's kind of very
Yeah,
front end.
but if it is that general, that the launch is not a problem, right? It cannot be, because like you only ask a few questions.
It sounds like it's simple, but like once we start wordsmithing these questions, it
No,
can
but if you go
really.
into too much detail, you actually take away from the overall.
Oh, no, like I think you, like, it's just, it can be difficult to ask questions where people aren't reacting to them, like potentially in a, like, either leading or,
I think there's only support making this a priority to get Matt planning working on it. Whether
Say
or
it
not,
again, please.
and it's just as the priority of getting Matt planning to work on the survey part, right? We're trying to find priorities. Whether we launch in May or June, I think the priority is to get them doing a draft.
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit that, like, even though like I've dealt with these things in the past and I know what the nature of them is, I still have a bit of anxiety without seeing something in front of me that says, okay, I know how this will end. Or I know that, oh, we've got a lot of work to do, or this is just, we don't call it this, we call it that, if it's that, I'm happy, but we don't know that yet. That's my biggest anxiety around that. And having a bad launch,
But James, like, what makes it failure or success? Like, if you get a lot of criticism and people are pissed off and they write something that you don't like, who cares? That's their opinion.
I don't want the process, it's damaging to, if your process is attacked as opposed to even content. Then you're digging back, trying to reestablish credibility with the process.
So do they criticize are the questions about the process or about the content?
Sometimes they can say, what were you guys smoking in that room when you even thought that you would do this kind of question? You know, like, I mean, I'm being, I'm
No, no.
exaggerating, you know, but you're not gonna get that. But it would be sort of like, well, like, is this, who's on this? What's the credibility of this? Why are we doing this? I mean, you get all kinds of responses from a public perspective, but if it's credible, then you've launched in a way that Melanie said, we've got the goodwill of the community and et cetera, and they're gonna say, they'll look at this as a positive thing as opposed to ultimately a not so positive thing.
I think it's really important to start well. Like,
Yeah, I'm still kind of puzzled what that means. Starting well, but anyway, I think the goal.
Well, in a way, you're introducing, for some people, you're introducing, what is an OCP? Right, you're introducing an OCP, why are we doing this? What does it do? You know, all those kind of sort of big picture things, and now, here's how we're going to develop a new plan. Here's our process, here's what here's what you can expect. Here's when you can expect to hear from us. Here's some, all that stuff that we've been working on and talking about in these meetings. And so it's just,
I was just wondering how specific it has to be, but you say you want to give all the dates and the whole process.
no, but you do outline sort of the,
it's like a high level time.
high level timeframe. Here's what you can expect.
What's gonna happen in phase
Yeah.
1, what's gonna happen in phase 2.
Yeah,
It's
It's
a
kind of-
framing exercise more than anything.
yeah.
And it's, building trust, it's like, why are we asking you to spend time and give us information? This is how we're gonna use it. We're not just wasting your time, you know? Yeah.
This is maybe a little more specific to like the survey questions themselves, but I made this comment many times in that document. I think this first survey should include some questions of asking folks how they want to be engaged with. Like, throughout the process, I think would be a good faith sort of. Like, our in-person engagement preferred, how much communication would you like to receive? Like, I think that would be helpful as well.
That's pretty typical though in an engagement process, isn't it?
No, we'll be looking for it.
Yeah, I don't know, it's good to play. But what I'm hoping, here's our issue. We don't know what we're looking at. Right?
Yeah, where's the content?
Yeah, so.
I was just gonna say, I think Councilor Jurgensen has his hand up.
Oh, okay, oh, sorry.
There it is, yeah.
Oh, there it is, okay. Alex, please go
No,
ahead.
no worries. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. It was not so much about the survey. It was actually, I had it up for a while from earlier regarding tools and techniques. I'm not sure if it was captured in the final data or not, but I had a conversation with the consultants about how we might approach accessibility, and that we may need some individual one-on-one time with specific groups of persons with disabilities to be able to really make an accessible engagement process. So I just wanted to make sure that was reflected in the data. And by the way, the sound here on Zoom sounds great from this end.
Makes the whole building work, right?
I'm just scrolling through the town of Gibson's OCP, because they're doing that as well. And there's lots of questions in here. Which topics from the list below would you like to see kept in the updated OCP version? And we've got, you have to pick from welcome, sustainable, natural environment, natural asset. So I don't know if I can't find the survey itself, but these are all the questions that they're asking at the pop-ups and everything, and they're quite detailed. So if that's the same as the online survey.
I would suspect they probably are. I'm gonna try to bring us back a bit.
Yeah, just
Sure.
having this land in kind of an actionable kind of way. What I'd like to propose is that we pressure McElhaney to deliver the drafts earlier. And that we could actually then confirm the launch in the undercurrent. We can maybe push it out a week to May 8th if we wanted to, if we feel when we see the draft that a lot more work needs to be done. But if we think that we're on track, then commit to the, April 24th, May 1st date. But I think it's hard for us to maybe, if we're talking about, making sure that we're confident with that timeline, it's hard for us to say we're confident until we see those draft materials. So let's maybe pressure McElhaney to deliver us the drafts earlier. And when we take a look at it, see like, this is exactly what I was thinking, move on in, or you know what? We're totally on, it's hard for us to confirm it until we see everything. So that would be my proposal is push back on.
Going back to the what's in front of us in the plan. I guess one question I have maybe to you, Daniel, is some of these things sound like they would be things that would have to be done by the municipality, et cetera. Like the social media, the landing page, is this all doable with all the things that now all either, I don't know if it's actionable yet, but is there anything in here that you go, we got some concerns about the timing of being able to do any of this?
I mean, maybe what I could do is I can keep going through the document, because in it, they go through some of the stuff that's like what they're gonna produce.
Okay, sure, okay. Right, continue.
Right. Some of this, I'm not gonna read this page. They go through like the marketing method and the tools to use for the different type of messages. But I was trying to find, okay, that's what they do. So press releases, the project team will provide one press release ahead of each engagement round. So this is what is that message going to occur. The press release will include details about the OCP process, opportunities to provide input, dates, and location of pop-up events, and directions to the project's digital resources, so the website. Ahead of each round of engagement, McElhaney will provide key messages to the OCP steering committee, encourage sharing of project information, awareness materials, encourage the steering committee to share social media content, word of mouth promotion. Okay. Social media, the project team will provide content for 5 social media posts for each round of engagement. BIM staff will share on BIM social channels. So they'll produce the posts that then Sarah will be posting. E-news, so the project team will write newsletters, snippets with calls to action that then we would distribute through our newsletters. Project landing page, central hub for all information related to OCP process. The McElhaney team will produce copy graphics and images for them to post on a dedicated project landing page. So they'll be providing the material for the page that then our staff would update.
So no issues there in terms of.
No issues there for us. Because I say, so it's like,
We have dual purpose committee pages in the past with the economic development one, and it's moving in that direction with accessibility. Would we use the committee page for that? Or
I don't think so. I think I would want a different.
Bigger.
So the steering committee page would still be where you'd find like the agenda and the minutes of this committee and like our terms of reference and that. But I think we would want a public page that people go to who just want to see, I want to see the survey, I want to see whatever else is there, the timeline, stuff like that. But I don't need to see the minutes of the OCPC.
Yeah, more marketing, less procedural. Yeah.
I'll just send everybody the link to the Gibsons.
Did I have to use the word marketing? Because marketing, I find so many negative connotations, like you try to convince people of something. They try to make you buy something you don't really need.
Communication.
I get the meaning of the word, but
How about community outreach or something like that? Marketing means it's please.
Story maps website, so
What story map? Because it's not referred to in any of the documents.
I think that's the same as the vertice mapping. So we did the mapping project. In community posters, so large and small format posters. They will design 2-foot by 3-foot posters and smaller letter size posters for posting community spaces such as rec center, ferry terminals, bulletin boards, etc.
Sorry, I'm not on the committee, but so we would be going to town to print those then? They're just sending us the design and getting them printed and.
They said they'd provide them. Design and provide.
Yes.
I mean,
I mean, we can print the smaller ones.
Yes.
And to get more.
Up to.
Yeah.
your pages. Oh, you're doing this.
Sorry, that was me.
Moving the pig.
Yeah.
You were doing it with the energy.
Yeah.
Moving.
Neural link.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, like with this document, which, you know, it's fairly comprehensive, it would be helpful for me, I don't know if others feel the same way, just knowing who's taking the lead and where do they need support? Like, does it come from the committee? Does it come from staff? Does it come from, you know, or is it 100% just McElhaney? You know, I think that would also help us as a committee show support. Or even queuing the committee, where do they need us to step in, either to spread the word or to help with engagement? That's just sort of as a sidebar.
The other thing I might say to that is that we are an advisory committee. So showing what the role, like identifying those things that the committee needs to weigh into, but we're not. We do need to leave some to our experts and our staff on knowing what their issues are too, right? So.
What do you mean?
I don't want, I want us to be careful not to become a, or to respect our role as an advisor, as opposed to day-to-day management of the work. So it is, if it requires an input from us, definitely, you know, for this document for us, but I don't want Daniel to feel like he needs to provide all the details for us just to feel comfort that is.
No, I guess I just wanted to say that as from the steering committee, I see maybe gaps in this document.
Oh,
that
okay.
if they say, here, you know, the engagement is Jane's law, okay, great.
Yeah.
There's a tactics in executing that, and is there an expectation of what the municipality does or what
Oh, okay.
volunteers
Yes,
of the
yes, yes.
steering
Yeah.
committee? That's just something that I'm seeing here, and I wouldn't want it to be that they go and activate, say, like Jane's Walk, and then something is missing, and why wasn't this done or why wasn't that done?
Okay, fair
When
enough.
it's not reflected in this document, and maybe there's other documents that you're receiving, Daniel, that we're not, but I just wanted to say that when I look at this, for me, that kind of jumps out as, because you're not kind of saying what the expectations. And this McElhaney, we can just assume is doing 100% all the time unless they actually specify it. But
So my reading of this, McElhaney's gonna do 2 pop-ups. We want any more, we're doing them. And McElhaney's gonna do 1 Jane's Walk, and if we want any more, we're doing them.
Yes.
Right, and are they 100% doing that? Like, there's no other expectation from, I mean, like, I just don't know, it's just,
But if there's only gonna get from McElhaney 1 Jane Walk and 2 pop-ups, if we want any more pop-ups or any more walks, they're not gonna be involved, they're gonna give us the toolkit, so.
Yep.
And I did find the little bit on page 14, it says additional volunteer run open house, pop-up events and other activities. McElhaney will provide material.
right. So again, but again, whatever it is, I just see that as a gap in that we're not quite sure then who would take the lead with that, or maybe Daniel, it's clear to you, I don't know, but I think just kind of putting that in this document could be helpful.
And that's something I think we definitely wanted to talk about at this level, either this meeting or 28th, in terms of like, what is the, like the steering committee, almost like desire for additional events and then like ability to participate in additional events.
Right.
Does that fall into the subcommittee
Yeah.
discussion?
Don't we had a. Agenda item to deal with that? Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, engagement materials discussion. Is that it? No, that's it. Sorry, that's the.
I just spent like 2 months of public.
So you're saying
you're ready.
Oh, yeah, I knew it was
You're
there.
saying you won't participate because he's gonna tell somebody to go to him.
No, I've had time to recover.
It's survived.
Yeah.
Here are the signed actions and next steps, that agenda item 5.4, is that what you?
No, I thought, and I think Seth just was within this item that we identified. The role of the steering committee in public engagement. So that's part of it. I thought it was a separate agenda.
And I may just keep going through the plan. and-
Yeah, and then we'll come back to.
Yeah, so just say the table 2 has this round 1, that's what we're talking started. So round 1 of engagement, share information about the OCP process, begin to gather information from public about their vision of Bowen's future, identify the key issues and objectives for the future of Bowen. Build community capacity for the OCP process by helping people to understand what an OCP is. In terms of like what the first survey goal is, I guess that's laying out what the role of that first survey and first initial pop-ups and everything is, right? And then some methods, pop-up engagement, community-wide survey, the James Walk, the interactive mapping, project email, and then this additional volunteer run activities. Talk about at the end. And then round two, I won't spend any time on, but fall of 2025. And then this next section that talks about what are the different things. So Allison had a question of what is pop-up engagement? You can sort of outlining here what it is. Low barrier, if I gather input, information boards, visioning wall, large scale apps, big idea activities. During the pop-ups, we'll have an iPad available for people to complete the survey. And this is where they say that in round one, they'll host 2 pop-up engagements. And they have it here, so Bowen on the 10th, the Bowen House Farmers Market, and then moving to the library outdoor patio space. That's where I was going to suggest instead we move it to here as a farmers market there, community center here. Have it round 2 again, fall.
I wouldn't do the farmer's market if you're gonna do it.
So what was that?
I wouldn't do the farmer's market if you're gonna do it here.
Different times, the farmer's market.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because people are there at the farmers market, and if just when that winds down, you pack them.
Sorry, this
Yeah.
just popped into my head as a suggestion. When you're having these pop-ups and there's crowds, you know how like if you vote, there's a little sticker that you get, put it on your shirt saying,
Oh,
stickers that says, I participated in the OCP, something like that. So if you do go to the pop-up, then you get a sticker and then you can walk around with it and people will be like, what is that about? You can go, well, you know, so there's a comment back to McElhaney.
So their 2 pop-ups are gonna be on the same day,
Same day, yeah,
so rather than 2 different days.
yes.
Read a buzz.
Yeah, but why not create a budget the first day and then everybody that's, well, I went to the pop-up, then have another one the next week. So that people will go to that one rather than,
Well, hopefully too, we can maybe advertise these pop-ups so people know what the timing is and where they are.
but nobody who lives here goes to the Cove on the weekend because you can't find a place to park.
It's all about
Nobody
her.
goes, it's 2 bucks, right? Yes, I think Allison, that's
Run
right.
on the next, on the Wednesday. We can, like, the volunteers can do that.
Yeah, but
Well, it depends
If there
how
were-
local they are. If you have one somewhere in the Good Point and the other one somewhere in a different neighborhood.
well, that was when I
they can be at the same
suggested those
time.
places, I was thinking you would just do it, if not combine it with an event. I mean, the last thing golfers are gonna wanna do going for a golf tournament is stop and fill in a pop-up. But to host the South Bowen down at the golf course and have an hour and a half discussion on the OCB is a different thing entirely.
Or just saying to people that there's a pop-up there, that you can swing by when you realize, I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be, telling,
Tell-
we are going to be at the golf course on
Exactly.
Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
Stop by.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have an hour and a half of content. Like, I don't think our expectation of people is you're gonna come and sit and discuss the intricacies of policy. detail.
It's not a presentation.
And that's not the engagement.
Like, really, all we're doing is we're setting up a table. There's probably a staff member, maybe 1 or 2 members from this committee. Answering some questions when people come by, like for these initial ones.
Well, if you look at that Gibson's one, they had each poster, each question had a poster board.
Yeah.
And then people had dots and could put things on them and everything. So I'm guessing they're gonna do the same. And that's their round 1. That report is what we heard.
We did that with the Birch booth at Fest,
Yeah.
where people could signify their interest and sort of. They seem to enjoy it.
Which kind of reminds me too, I know we're now ping-ponging all over the place, but when we think of round 2 and wanting to launch it in fall of 2023, I actually think trying to launch that just before. Oh, sorry, 2025. My glasses on. Trying to launch that around BowFest, like to have something set up for BowFest, I think would be really would be,
That's an ideal time.
would be a really great time to say, yeah, round two, here's what we heard, and have actually a presence at Bill Fest.
I think at the very least, we want to both fest something, even if it's just like update. It's going over like this is what we heard in phase one. We're coming
Yeah.
in October, we're coming back. This is how you say it.
Just
That's an easy commitment
Yeah,
to make.
and what we heard would be more, you know, people maybe aren't getting their minds around to both as of answering questions, but what we heard.
As much as we can, I think we should try and piggyback these pop-ups though to like other things like the farmer's market. We've got a ton of people showing up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Like in my experience, when you say we set up here. Unless there's a lot of other things going on, like we like to think that a lot of people will show up, but like we'll talk to more people at the farmer's market than we will in the foyer here. And so I know they've done a pretty good job and we provided feedback on like what those events might be, but. Let's try.
Might be curiosity, people wanting to see the building.
Yeah.
What's that, sorry?
People wanting to see the building, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The weekend just after it's opened.
I more just mean like, standalone OCP events probably won't draw the same way that like.
Yeah.
If you look at their engagement plan, I mean, it's almost what they've said, maybe not, I don't think they said it verbally, but in round one, pop-up engagement is the main sort of,
Yeah.
whereas round two is pop-up or open house. So you've got something a little bit more substantive, you might actually draw people to.
Yeah.
So I totally agree.
And I think you're right too, like my experience is like people who are invested in it, will do the survey when we launch it, right? They'll see it in the news, they'll do the survey, they will write to me, they'll write to mayor and council, and they'll come in and they'll talk here. And people who aren't invested in it will see it if they are going somewhere already. And there's not sort of that in-between person who's like, oh, Daniel's gonna be at the pop-up on Saturday, I'm gonna come to the community center then, because they're like, well, I know I can just find Daniel during the week anyways, just the corner.
Or we can have Daniel working out in the gym.
Yeah.
And then I'm beside him.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna try to.
Or wherever you go, the pop-up will just follow
It'll just
you.
be pop-up. Pop-up. It's in soccer on Saturday.
He always would ask me about it.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about what we all feel like, what are we all willing to volunteer for them? I guess are we individually, are we all happy to volunteer for one event, two events? Like that might define how many pop-ups we have. I mean, I'm happy to do one. I mean, so are we able to have 4 pop-ups? Are we comfortable with that? Like what's?
Can I just give a shout out to Melanie, is the queen of engagement. She was the big leader on engagement for the transportation plan.
He speaks from experience.
Yeah. You are amazing for that.
But I think you gotta be creative and you have to be where people are. Yeah.
Like walking the ferry lineup.
But we also did the ferry,
On the
we did the
ferry.
ferry terminal like at 6, 7 in the morning. Again,
Yeah,
because that's where people were.
that's right, that's right.
I mean, if you want to get people, you do the general and the ready on
Yeah.
a Thursday
Yeah,
at just after school. You know, between 4 and 6, that's when people go in. Like if you want bang for your buck, but we all have to, I mean, I'm curious, are we all happy volunteering? How many events?
I'll do it. I mean, I think as many as we can manage, to be honest, like.
I think it's part of the gig.
yeah, I would say we were supposed to be volunteering to help.
So we all, but if we all figure out how many we want to do, then that tells us how many events we can host.
If you really like it, then you want to do more of them, eh?
So would it be 2
Well, you
volunteers?
said 2, that's all you get.
And again, it's for the number of people. And again, can we ask McElhaney to maybe list the pop-up, the date, and, you know, something that we could actually maybe sign up as volunteers so that we know, you know, the logistics of it. And then again, I don't think there's a pop-up in the Blue Water area of the island, but, you know, maybe I could volunteer to do something in that.
I think that goes back to that in.
Well, so do that again and then that's the date, the time.
I think it's probably a question of like identifying which of the ones are most important probably. And then, yeah, to your point, like what are the times?
Date.
You're gonna be a busy man, I think, in the next little bit.
I can do a few of them, a few different ones. Just to see them pop up, one of the very Size.
Because it's probably like a staff member and then a couple of committee members,
Yeah.
ideally, right? And then like,
I don't think it has to be staffed. You have
No, yeah, I don't
staff?
think it has to be stuff,
I don't think it has to be, yeah.
I think for the big ones,
just to invite comments
And
and to answer questions.
Well, we could have.
I think we can manage without it, but I think like like, I think it's more like an optics and kind of like, you have a staff representative, you have a committee member, you know, like there's both of it.
For all of these.
No, maybe not all of them, no.
for the big ones, like if we're gonna be at Bowfest, if we're gonna be,
Oh, for sure, like the
okay.
big ones, for sure.
Well, maybe we should try and find out a little more. Again, this is why we don't have details of the questions or really details of the, but I'm just looking at the appendix. And they're suggesting for library, like they just said, counselor, we want to do it during an event schedule.
17.
I mean, wouldn't the library be better to go at once a busy times? I mean,
Be good to set up outside the library, to get the ferry traffic and those catching the bus.
Yeah, like presume like, at least in our process, like we would be engaging with all these groups now and being like, what's the best time for us to be there? What's the best day for us to be there? Like asking, because it'll be different for each one of these sites.
So, yeah, so again, I think in terms of this engagement plan, I think what would be helpful, because we're getting close to it, if we're really launching this in May, then the locations are great, and I understand the target audience and the timing, but to get more specific about where exactly are you located?
Needs to good.
Yeah, what time and how many people do you think you need there? Or there may be areas that are busier than others, and this is where as committee members, we can help volunteer.
And I think as well, I mean, I'm going to assume that we don't need to reinvent the wheel in terms of if we, was it transportation plan recently engagement? No, is there, no.
10 years ago.
Oh, sorry. Is there, is there anything that's recent that we could draw upon that either was successful or not successful?
Drop on not successful quite easily.
Because at the same time, we don't want to overcommit to things that are diminishing returns on what we're going to get out of it. In other words, we keep getting either the same people or we're going to an event where people are not going to be interested. We want to make sure that we use our resources wisely.
well, looking at this appendix, there's a date on here for April 26th.
what page is the appendix?
So very last page of that.
Page 17,
Oh,
25 of the agenda, 17 of the engagement plan. Which one's April 26th?
It's SK8 day at Fire Hall number 2.
there's, yes, we don't gotta go like that.
So can I just be clear, the two pop-ups they're doing on May 10th, that is when McElhaney will be here and we can help them or not. This list is suggested items that you guys are on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what we're talking about now.
I don't
wanted to do one on our own until after we've had the May 10th one, so we can see the materials and all that stuff.
I think that's just, I think that leads towards like shifting it by a week. At least, so it's like if the survey launches the 8th and they do pop up on the 10th, then it sending it into June, I think to get extra weekends to have it available, because otherwise if it launches the 1st, but we're not really doing events on the 3rd because they don't even have the printed stuff yet. I think it makes sense if the first one is one McElhaney does. People who are available can come by and like see it in action.
And
It helps them feel more confident to then take on.
But what happens once the survey's finished? Are we supposed to be carrying on with pop-ups over the summer?
No, this is the same period of time.
This is to drum up interest in it, get people to fill out a survey, get engaged, pay attention. That's sort of the main intent of it, right? So like how many is enough?
Well, it's trying to reach all the different demographics. Like, I was thinking about going to the luncheon at the Legion, what they do for the seniors. I have no idea how well that's attended, but if that's, getting the seniors audience, or just Sky has an annual meeting or something.
I think it benefits us to do as many as we can, like that are reasonable, like, I understand what you mean about diminishing returns, but also there is a benefit to being like, well, we went and we're there. And we made an effort,
there are always going to be people at the end who say, why wasn't I given an opportunity to talk about this?
Yeah.
So it's good to have a list.
Yeah.
I think we're also gonna fine tune it as we go, and we're gonna see what's effective and what isn't.
Yeah, the idea of the pop-up is that we can literally make a decision real quick.
Pop out.
We're not gonna advertise, we're just,
Yeah.
we're here.
I think that's true, it's like, we're advertising over at the farmer's market on the tenth, we'll be here at the tenth, but other things that it's like, well, we'll set up in the courtyard of the Ruddy. We get permission and stuff to do it, it's like, well, we'll do it, for the afternoon, we're not like advertising, like, come see us here, it's like, no, we're trying to have people who haven't seen the advertising, or if we're in, the library. Space outside, like the undercover area, we could be there, so that's capturing people for a period, or, but it's not like advertised, we wouldn't need to advertise, like, we're on the ferry on these days to do it, we just coordinate with BC Ferries.
So then who's quarterbacking then all of these extra pop-ups?
Sophia.
The schedule. Yeah, in terms of
I think that's,
how many.
yeah, so that's when I start thinking like, okay, before the 28th, it's like having a schedule of like, these are things and what, if the goal is like everyone, they feel like they could do a couple. And just see, okay, what's a reasonable schedule
Right.
laying out.
I have a suggestion. Maybe just spend a few more minutes, we've already moved over to this appendix anyway, it's just scan the list and see if, if there's anything on here that we say immediately, don't waste our time, or yes, absolutely not. Then go away, and then Daniel will, at our next meeting, come back with a suggestion on, not necessarily, doesn't have to be dates and times per se, maybe. Or, let's do these, here's my recommendation on how many to do. And then therefore, what kind of volunteer we might need from the committee, and then we can kind of sign out right then and there, so that we have an action on that, without, what do people think of that? Okay, is there, in scanning this list, is there anything that people have a view on that says definitely we don't? So that,
I think there's more people going to the general store than to the Bowen Island Public Library. You have to be there the whole day.
What about the beer and wine store?
Well, I was gonna say, there's no, for the youth, the disenfranchised youth, you wanna go to the pub.
Well, there you go. No, but
So
really,
maybe we go through just what's on the list now, and I'll put like a tick or X if people are like, yes, should be in the plan. Does that work?
Well, the library's, yeah, so the
So-
library's central.
So the
It's gotta
like
cover it.
library. Like, yes, I'll put in the plan.
And further to the library, to be outside,
that's good. one.
like in a
Yeah,
tent.
that's not true.
Well, I was thinking of
Yeah.
the pavilion.
Well,
like,
they've got
be
the
there.
stage there now.
I guess I'm like in the stage, I'm
Yeah.
like beside the
Yeah.
library entrance, but it
Yeah.
is undercover, right?
Yeah,
It's like
outside
you
of
wait
the
for the class, then you're like a cat.
Then you get the ferry traffic.
Okay, sorry, sorry, I was gonna go through just the list to see like, okay, do we think these should be in the plan, and then at the end, then I'll say, okay, what else? What are we, what's missing from us?
I personally say it's all good,
Okay,
but I would add Artisan Square.
Oh.
which is at the bottom, Artisan Square.
It's right at the bottom.
Where?
And they can should be-
Okay, sorry.
Uh-huh.
I was like,
What? I think you have to scratch the one at the fire hall.
Fire hall, we're missing that date, but that, maybe there's an alternate.
But-
You guys go through it, and we can.
So public library, we talked about outside in the pavilion, farmer's market at Bix.
Yeah.
Definitely happened on the tenth, it can happen at further ends as well. On the ferry, so during commuting hours, ferry, I might put in there even it's like ferry lineup.
I think the ferry lineup might be.
people are waiting.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And you get more of the cars then.
Yeah.
If you do it on the ferry, you just get the people who go upstairs, but if you do the lineup, then you get
Sitting ducks.
a really variety of demographics in there.
And also
I think they're trying to catch one of the high school kids commuting fairs.
That's what we're
I was gonna say that-
I'm not volunteering for that.
It's the 3:30 in the afternoon. You don't want the morning ferry, trust me. They're finishing their homework assignments and everything.
But they're really engaged, but they're awake though, like they're really engaged.
I would say,
Yeah.
maybe just alternate between 7:30 and 3:30, very close. Get the morning teens and afternoon teens. Because you're not just gonna do it once, it's gonna be done a number of times every.
Scottish country dance at Tiernan, I didn't know happened. There's,
So did we scratch the SK8?
yeah, well, just because the timing of it,
It's,
26th, but then I put here like other youth question mark.
And if
And
they're
they
doing
don't
their
do that.
open house on the 26th, they better start advertising.
Yeah. Maybe just put a note if we can capture that. sometimes.
Tiernan country dancing.
I have mixed feelings about these like event ones where there's like an activity, right?
Yeah, because people are coming to do it and the place that
It's,
well, it's not like there's not a flow of people the same way.
it's like they're coming to do something specific.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, I'm like,
Yeah, and then you, more coordination, you can't just show up. Like, the organizer or whatever need to know. It is hard.
Well, like the farmer's market, they're there, but they're not there for a specific activity. They're there to buy and then they'll wander around. Stop to see us on the way in and out, but
I don't think we're gonna get a lot of people's time at like a
Yeah.
pickleball tournament.
Yeah, they're gonna show
They're
up just
like-
before it starts.
Yeah, they're gonna do their thing and they're gonna leave, like it's not,
I would like to suggest that there is a big gap of time when adults are looking for things to do, when they drop their kid off for the 30-minute or an hour before their game. And then they wait to watch the game. Wandering around looking for things to do, so that could be a good spot,
So-
soccer and baseball.
yeah, over here, yeah, at school.
Yeah, school and baseball field. Well, parents and grandparents,
Do the little kids play on the baseball field?
like 8 to 12.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Saturday, monthly Saturday meeting with Councillor Judy.
absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Does she welcome our participation?
She's at our last, was she at our last meeting? It's just one before, but one of the meetings she had suggested. it. So, so I can check with her when her May one is or June, if it's early June is. I went on Legion.
And so we talked about, was there a specific,
Line it's like.
We also did the dinners there.
Yeah,
we did the
youth fair on Thursday.
I think that could be a good community one.
Friday dinners.
I didn't know whether it was, or the seniors lunch. Yeah, I don't know who. Should talk to Sky about the best time to get a seniors one. I mean, maybe they've got an annual meeting coming up or something.
So would we just do one at their Legion or do a couple?
Maybe do a lunch and a dinner.
Yeah, like they're pretty active. There's probably a couple of different opportunities.
Tunstall Bay Clubhouse.
doesn't sound very specific. I don't know enough about. what-
But again, I think just, again, when there's an activity at the
Oh, if there is.
clubhouse or when it's a busy time, putting the pop up there.
A weekend
Yeah.
time when everybody's on here for the weekend, they're going.
It's for the
schools
initial.
Open, all that stuff, so
yeah.
This is like for this month of engagement.
I-
It's suited for Tunstall Bay.
late May probably would be, weather might be good.
I don't think people are, if it's just the private members, then they will be showing up. I don't think you'll get.
Well, like if the kids are doing swimming lessons, the parents are just sitting there.
Yeah, but not
in.
me.
But maybe it's not just for members, maybe that is like something we advertise and
Well, if you do it in their parking lot.
I
You're
think
gonna get all the
maybe
people
further
going to
down the
Tunstall
line,
Bay
you could do
Beach.
Tunstall, but I think right now there's not a lot of people that.
We don't have a lot of pop-ups though on the west side of the
I was just about
island.
to say, it speaks to like what you mentioned earlier about
Yeah.
like kind of some
Friend's house.
like equity of the like.
Opportunities.
I mean, you don't want, you want it to be something like,
Pop up and like that.
like, if we know something's happening, and you can hang out part.
Yeah, so maybe contacting the clubhouse and just saying, is there something that's going on in May that gets a really great turnout for the Tunstall neighborhood?
Early June.
Yeah. You know, alternatively, you can also guaranteed we have a nice sunny day, go down to Bowen Beach, but.
I mean, that was the other thing I thought, doing a pop-up at Bowen Bay Beach, but you do get a lot of tourists when you get closer to the summer, but I would say more residents in May. But it's, you know what, it's not a great area, like you've got that huge turn, there's a small parking area, it's slightly dangerous. So like unless you're doing your pop-up right on the beach where you're kind of out of the way and which isn't a bad idea.
There is that sort of little bit of a landing area.
Yeah, there's that.
You do right
Not
after
long.
there's a fire passes.
Yeah, again,
I feel like Tunstall Bay is probably, like on that side of the island, is probably
Well,
the
they-
best option. Yeah.
Well, there's distinct neighborhoods in the island.
Right.
And if we want to say we're covering everything, then I think you have to hit every neighborhood.
I have to say, like, I live in Blue Water, I never go to Tunstall.
Yeah.
But still, I think just making sure we can say, yes, we did do activations on that side of the island is
Yeah,
important.
like that's
Well,
more
there's
what
the
I.
kids' play park at King Edward Bay.
How about if we want a visible pop-up on the west side? Is that the,
Well,
is that the?
I think if we can find a date for Tunstall Bay, like just talking to, yeah, what activities going on, that there may be a decent crowd, that would be good. And maybe doing something at Bowen Beach at that landing site on a sunny day.
On a Sunday, but I get that we wanna show that we've been throughout the island, but let's not do it just for an optic, if we get two people stopping by. So,
Well,
that's what I mean, like,
yeah,
on a-
Bowen Bay is crowded on
no, I know, that's what I
Saturday
mean,
or
like,
Sunday,
we've got
like.
a sunny day, et
Yeah.
cetera, but if it's like a pouring rainy day, no, we were there.
Can it be more like
So
an
Betty
official,
had some,
can it be more an official open house instead of a pop-up? Like if you, I mean, there's two distinct neighborhoods there, and if they feel that that addresses a bit more, you know, the interests of the whole west side of the island. I mean, it's almost like, yeah, do you happen to catch somebody, or can you just invite people?
Well, that's what I was.
hold on, Betty,
I'm gonna argue for the West Side Fire Hall, because it's more visible, it's not private, it's muni. And you can both plan to go there and you
Get
can
to
just
drive
be
by.
going by and say, oops, they're doing it today, we should stop. So I think it's, to get Blue Water, Bowen Bay, Tunstall, that whole area, I think it's more strategic than having to book something at Tunstall or piggyback on something there.
Put a sign along the road and warn them, we'll be here.
Yeah, some,
On Saturday.
Like, I think the more we can do, the better, but I kind of agree with Adam. If you pick a spot where people are already going anyways, I think you get a higher chance of participating than somebody is then going to deliberately stop and participate.
Could we do like a pancakes morning, the fire pump or something?
yeah,
To get people to stop.
That would be good.
get the firemen to entertain the kids.
Well, maybe if the fire hall has not advertised their April 26th event, we could get them to postpone it to a Saturday in May.
It's because it may be also the
Action item
Saturday.
for Council Morris. They're out. The optics.
What about the cidery? That could be also.
Is there a plant sale at the right?
Everybody's gonna volunteer to go to the center.
Yeah.
So if you want to get people on May the 10th, you want to go to the garden club's doing their plant sale on the 10th.
Sorry, can we,
And there's a whole ton of stuff happening on the 10th.
can we finish going through this section?
Like that was for
Yeah,
the day of-
Apparently not.
no. Okay, the shed of the golf club.
Or there's something to work with it, not if I'll be necessarily with an event.
Yeah.
Because,
Okay, so like.
well, I'll find out if there's anything going on, but,
Okay.
We have to, yeah.
but on Saturday, they're booked full with golfers.
So isn't that the point, it's like if we want to be, yeah,
And
we do
they'll-
think that's worthwhile to have set up on there, like 5 their little putting green as a pop-up to capture people.
Yeah, you'll get the golfers as they're
Yeah.
coming and going.
Yeah.
And you can tell the neighborhood and
Yeah.
people will walk down and they're going for their walk down to the beach and stuff like that. Setting something up at Seymour Bay Beach is. wanna get
I think that's the shed instead of bay.
The shed is good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's better than single bay. Bowen Building Center,
And the board's gonna approve it, right?
not sure.
I mean,
It seems like a weird one to me.
I think you'll get different type of people there.
Yeah, you'll get the
It's different
contact,
spots,
yeah.
like on a Wednesday, like I just, that's what I think that what makes it a different engagement plan is if you've got some different, to me, when I read this document, it just, I've read so many that do like this. It's like, I don't even, sometimes I'm like, I wish the mini just had a standard engagement. Yeah, just for saying, but you know, it's an island, whatever. I think if we want to engage with different people from OCP.
No, I'm happy to, I'll do that one with you. Let's do it.
You'll get different, and you get
Sign
all
up.
sorts of different types of people going, and you get the contractors, and then you get people looking, right? For, you know,
Garden stuff.
stuff and.
You have to be there the whole day. right?
What?
Have to be there the whole day. People could be in and out.
No, we,
But it's not that.
Yeah, it's
1 hour.
everything.
we can't do all day, like.
Yeah,
it'll
1
kill
hour
us.
doesn't do anything.
Like, it'll be-
Talk to the building center and find out when they get their most traffic.
Usually, like, when we do these things, they're like 3 hours tops.
Yeah, I think,
Even then, that's a big.
Like,
do a morning or an afternoon.
yeah, it's like, honestly, if we're gonna be doing like 10 of these, and each of us are gonna do it.
I'm happy to talk with them to see when they're most,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
might be Friday afternoon, when we all realize that, oh, we gotta go now because they're gonna close at 4.
Yeah, for the week.
I'm happy to go and talk to them about.
They do barbecue sometimes too, right? We could see if they've got anything planned.
I don't know, maybe like a, like dangerous, like, when you bring paint can or something. You know, yeah, dangerous, it's like, oh, bring your waste, tell us how, OCP.
Right.
Bowen Children's Center,
It's not a bad idea, Dave.
Bowen Children's Center, I was like, I'm happy to speak to them, this is more like our focus group stuff. Speak to their board. I don't know how much traction we get at pickup drop off time.
Busy.
Like normally when I'm there at pickup drop off time, it's like you're pretty task focused.
Yeah.
Like get in, get out before the meltdown.
I think for some of these, if we can just make sure that we're in the newsletter, the monthly newsletter, that's for Bix.
Yeah.
And for here, I think. With the link, and that, for me, those are always like really, they're just interesting, like, well, just pertinent reminders enough.
Yeah.
The link's right there, oh, I'll do that.
Kate's Hill Neighborhood Park.
I didn't know.
Well, that's why it's kind of,
I
right?
didn't know that.
That's my sense too, is like, I think that would be a class we would set up for 3 hours and then. You know, you'd catch like each person as they walk their dog, but it's almost like awkward then too, because like there's one person like, do you wanna talk to me? And they're like, no, I'm good. And you're like, It's like,
all day for you.
yeah.
Do neighborhood picnics out of Friday nights or whatever. And if, I can find out if they're still doing that, because that would be good.
Yeah.
But otherwise.
Artisan Square, I said, yeah.
Yeah.
Seemed like a pretty good one.
Yeah, sorry, which one?
Artisan Square.
That's like a Saturday morning thing, isn't it?
Artisan Square. For the kids.
Artisan Square.
Lunchtime, weekdays.
Yeah.
Crowd, there's a lineup when we go.
And then same here with like outside the post office, the Radio Bowen grocery store, it's not great, and I think again, yes, that could be, yeah, afternoon.
I'm happy to post that, cause it is where we work, you know, I can't do this.
Stepco Field.
That's during
That's like
baseball.
baseball.
Yeah. Opening day for baseball is 27th, so that's too early, unfortunately.
Good point.
I was just, they've got that no wall hall and there's the tennis courts are right there and whatever. They sometimes have community events and stuff, so.
Okay, that would be reaching out if there's an.
Is there an, yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, same thing for like, you know, geographical equity, growth, it would be nice to do it, but it would be nice to do it when there's like.
Well, an event.
A reasonable chance of success.
Or
Yeah.
and when everybody's up for the weekend and then it's very visible and it's right there. That's what-
Find out when the big parties are happening, and it'll just happen to be right near their driveway.
Well, I mean, to Ben's point earlier, like, fire hall does host, like, there's like, fill up your fire extinguisher. Like, if there was something like that,
Well,
great,
that's what they,
but
that's that open house thing and they usually do that in conjunction with that.
yeah, so like, if there's something like that, like, either town store, the fire hall, parking, like, whatever has the event, like, it doesn't really matter, I don't think that,
But we need to find out.
Yeah.
If we can con the fire hall into delaying the April to May, then.
yeah. Cause I mean, otherwise, like, people are driving, Very few people are gonna see like a sign and say like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll just stop and pop in, like,
Yeah.
but if they're coming for another reason, then
Oh, awesome.
that'll.
One that's missing that I don't think we can put on here, but it's recycling and. I know.
Yeah, and-
But we could do a program, you have 30 seconds right here. And
I
you're
know.
only in the slot and put your stuff up here.
I can see them pushing back not wanting
No,
it there because like there's already a lot of, I was even thinking before you drive in, you know how there's a little parking gravel area that you could set up there.
Outside, but actually, what if you're just literally handing someone a flyer as they're getting into the line?
They're in line for the bird, like here,
Yeah,
on your phone, waiting for your turn
Well, you do try.
And there's not a great reception there.
at the bird.
I don't know if you guys have noticed that. The little doesn't work very well during the line there,
So
so they
something
have
to
to read
read.
something up.
The knickknack nook has that like partially covered space out front.
Follow stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, like if we talk to them and said, we put a little table here.
But I don't think,
I think it's just from a vehicle point of view, like it's just,
getting them on a good time and literally being there and just handing it into their car, have a sign up, hand it into their car. I think that would be good.
yeah, or maybe like I could reach out to Louise and, or if you wanted to reach out to
I-
Louise just to say we'd like to
I've
do
got
some
some
sort of.
conversation, I can work with Jan, who's the one who works,
Jan.
yeah. I'm happy to take that one on.
Yeah.
Take it out, because I'm always down there.
Yeah, just say like this, you know, how could we fit in some sort of opportunity to engage that doesn't disturb operations?
I'm happy to talk to
We have
her.
something set up where we get rid of the wine bottles.
They're vulnerable.
Yeah, they're trapped. They're a bit sheepish.
It was
They're not
bad.
going-
Shame, they wanna give back.
Okay, so then on this list that I've added here of like fire hall, fire department, if they're doing any sort of event in May, June, do. And then the general store, so I tagged as like potential outside the general store. That's
Instead of, if we got seniors going out, seniors co-op, but Sky's got their drop-in days.
General store is good for handing out pamphlets, like.
Yeah.
People come and go.
I know it's not quite, it's like outside the Ruddy is nicer because there's a little bit more space, but the general store works well.
General store is, everybody goes there.
But I think there is a value in that, just being able to, you know, have someone captain to end something,
Yes.
and then they can always come back or whatever. It's certainly better than, you know, like you said, trapping that one person trying to walk their dog.
So before the 28th, I can do. We can reach out to some of these people, see what events are happening, and come up with a. Timeline of when things will happen, some will might be just flexible, like it might be, we're outside the Ready, it could be any afternoon after May 10th, you can do it. Or on the ferry lineup, any morning that people want to sign up to do a ferry lineup morning, as opposed to some of these gives at definite times. And partly I'm aware too, it's like, there's not that many weekends. If it's like February or May 10th, farmers market in here, the next weekend is the long weekend. You know, there's still value to do stuff in, but it's only a few more weekends after that, so it's like everything's on a Saturday. Every event.
It's a doodle kind of thing, stuff.
Well, and there's weather, right? So if you sign up for walking a ferry lineup and it's raining, then you'll be in the super next day. It's the same crowd.
So for our meeting on the 28th,
So that's all staying the same, that timing?
I think, well, what we're talking about is pushing the start a week, right? So if the survey starts on the 8th, the initial pop-ups on the 10th, and we extend it a weekend out the other side, and then we're not trying to do like pop-up stuff the week of May 3rd or something like that, but it's like, no, the first, press release on the 8th. Survey opens, McLean is pop-up events, and then we take over to do subsequent events. And then I think too, it's like anyone who's like chomping at the bit and really wants to be engaged can come to that first weekend. Do it, and then we're trying to that captured everybody.
And if any of the community associations are having, like, they all have annual meetings, and I have no idea, you know, when they are. I know the South Bowen one isn't until September, so that's was the second round, not the first round, but that's another opportunity to go.
Oh, Councillor Jurgensen has his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted, and again, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier about possibly need to do some individual engagement to make sure folks with disabilities get are accessibly engaged, and I'm more than happy to help to orchestrate that and coordinate that. So just thought I'd throw my name in the ring there.
Thank you.
I think that segues nicely too into, so we put on the agenda, we put just the committees list. Just to outline, like, we've done through some work recently, like streamlining committees, so here's the list of our 10 volunteer committees that, advisory committees that for me. But the idea being that, so as well as sort of the pop-up, so it's like if we're looking at the survey, like for anyone to fill out, looking at pop-up engagement, capture people where they are. And then it's looking at, okay, what kind of like, which isn't in the engagement plan, but I think the adding is like under the categories, like volunteer run activities is like focused attempts to meet people. So I had thought like part of that would be going to these communities or these, like some of them maybe not, it's like kind of a variance, I think, okay, maybe that's not as relevant, but like the committees that are there to provide advice on certain topics would be like staff attending each of those, like trying to schedule a committee meeting for most of those. So I'm like, well, if there's 10, it's not the OCP one, and it's not the Board of Variance. But maybe the other 8.
Yeah, those are meetings, so we just dissolved several committees. We have not yet gotten to the housekeeping piece of just imagine the email list, is there be value in, or
It's kind of hard if there's not a committee anymore. It may be like reach out to people, but it's harder to like say, we took feedback from my committee that, I know Betty, you've spoken to like, the expertise people have on.
Yeah, I don't even know where to put it in my notes, but I was concerned about, because we disbanded the transportation committee and they disbanded the ferry committee. And I was thinking particularly of Tyler, he knows so much, and about water taxis, about, the proposed ferry, about the issues with BC Ferries, about translate. So somehow there's probably a few other people like that we really want to target, and make sure they get a chance to contribute.
And further to that point, the OCP also gives us an opportunity to really look into, where we line up the ferry traffic. So we know the ongoing thing is that it goes through the cove. Why not actually move the ferry landing somewhere else on the island? There's also
Tender.
no, well, it's like Seymour Bay.
Well, that's the past ferries going in.
But the passenger ferry here instead, like, because the OCP is about land use, right? So maybe like from a transportation point of view,
Yeah, I
there's
think
going to be a
somehow we
lot
have
to be said.
Tap into that also, sort of changes with affordable housing and reducing parking and then what with not as much transit as other communities have. I mean, there's a whole wall of wool there that deserves treatment.
Where does so transportation committee is eliminated, but does it get captured in everything?
No,
Not at
the
all.
mayor's office, basically.
But
became apparent that there was a lot of advocacy work that was necessary to make changes. So
no, I'm just wondering, is there anything that the issues of transportation may put that way?
So Mayor's Task Force on Infrastructure may be speaking to
Transportation.
some infrastructure pieces around that, and then the Community Economic Development Committee might have some investment in.
So the question
Not really, but-
is just the interaction between this work and the committees.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is that it would be worthwhile to engage, not all, but most of the communities.
Yeah, like I think what I would propose is that like staff would go as an agenda item on. I think when I look at the list, I'm like, if not this, it's not OCP steering committee, I think not board of variance, because they're like specific to the area. But potentially like all the other 8.
You think the joint management committee for this?
Oh, that's the other one, right, you're right. It's not a joint.
Yeah, is that, that was what I was wondering, is that unless it has part of its work, looks at
No, it's
community recreation or anything, it's very
Yeah.
facility specific.
also not that one.
I have a question though. For this phase of the work, what, like, how would you see that engagement?
I think it's about like we're doing this work.
Yeah,
Here's the survey, like, yeah, so it's not necessarily the like policy, and some of it might just be like, how does the committee want to be engaged
yeah.
as we move forward? Yeah. I think so. So it's not looking for like, here, I want a definite, like, please tell me everything I need to know about it.
Yeah, like that happens when we actually have some.
Yeah.
And Daniel, I don't know what their schedule is like, but are you saying that it doesn't necessarily have to fit into our first phase window?
I think that'd be my goal. It could be that, yes, but like, I'll be something our committees to say, when do they have scheduled meetings between May 10th and June, whatever, 7th, and if not, can we schedule a meeting in that time period?
I mean, I guess even if they're not specifically within that period, even if it's before, the idea is the message to them is how to engage.
Yeah.
Right, so we don't have to have all our materials ready for them either, it's more of an introduction.
I mean, I think I would like at that point, I would like to have a live survey, I think, because then I'm telling the committee members and anyone who's like attending the meeting to, while you're here,
Go do.
fill out this survey, come as an individual to the pop-up events, and as a committee, how do we?
And so that's where, are we asking them for committee members to respond individually, or do you want to hear the collective recommendations coming from the committee?
I would want like both, like I want to hear from the committee, like what does the committee think? And I think that's more the phase 2 stuff of actually doing policy work, but then it's like as individuals, I want to develop.
Okay, so get sort of official comments from the committee at phase 2 when there's a draft plan.
Yeah.
But at the original kickoff, just looking for individual feedback.
So what about? Sorry, I keep losing my voice. What about Rotary? Being guest speaker at Rotary?
So then that's what I was getting into. So one topic is like committees. And it's like, okay, if it's staff, I can attend, those 7. And 7 committees, we can figure out a schedule that are attending their scheduled ones. And then in the agenda under, it was called engagement list alpha, is the OCP update interest holders list. And so then that was looking at, okay, am I doing a similar thing with some or all of the interest holders? So that's like scheduling a meeting with, some of the different groups, or see who has got, monthly meetings that or I can attend, do a similar thing in terms of we're doing this outreach. We're looking for broad feedback and stay engaged in the process. Yeah. And I don't know, some of that, like, we have a list now. I don't know, some of that says I can bring a list on the 28th, say like, this is who I've identified as like people to present to.
Are you referring to the interest holders list?
Yeah.
I think that's like, we're just a mail out really, right? Like an email saying we're doing this, survey is coming up, this is what's going on, like.
Although if you look at, hold on. Sorry, that's going first. I think there is probably a list as well of who do we want to actively try to engage with, correct? Which may be the whole list is saying, do you want to be engaged? Would you, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to assume that there are some that we will actively want to engage with.
Yeah.
And
Can I just ask them in an email what topic or what concern they want to bring forward in the email, so that you get feedback from them?
Well, if you look at the sections of the OCP, there's a whole section on culture and heritage. So
They can comment on that.
yeah, so I think we need to ask them for their input on
Yeah, because then you get answers back, you can kind of put them in groups and.
But that's to the survey, like you're directing them to the survey.
But that's.
Well, no, because they may have questions that are not on the survey. But what I'm trying to say is that the survey is still. It's a tool that exists, but if you want to ask these people if they have certain concerns, then you can stay with their concerns. What they would like, and then maybe the survey misses something, I don't know.
Well, this, maybe what, I'm thinking what we did on the Economic Development Committee a number of years ago, where I was on it, we actually went through the OCP and the land use bylaw and identified sections that didn't help economic development or needed to be changed to further economic development. And we actually had a draft amendment to the OCP, which was presented to the public and it got first reading, but that's as far as it ever went. And I forgot, I didn't blood my whole binder when I realized I had to walk down from the top. So I keep meaning to scan that and send it to everybody. But that's the sort of thing I think we need to ask the heritage groups. What's in the OCP now that isn't good for heritage? What would you like to see in the OCP that would support
Yeah, so,
heritage?
what I'm trying to say is that if you ask them if they want to participate, maybe all of them say they want to participate, and then what? But if you ask them from, is there a specific topic that you want to address, and maybe they don't respond because it's too difficult for them, then that's fine.
But we can point them at the survey and we can point them at, say, an email address or something like that, so that if you have specific concerns, they will get to staff, to the committee. I think trying to meet with everybody is gonna be, it's not manageable.
When is it targeted and when is it targeted? So that would be the question I would have, is that,
But you can,
So some of
in a way,
these-
ask them now.
I mean, what the easy one is that if we literally had contact information for all of these, it would be an introduction. And here's what's happening this month, here's, and it's well. Ask a question, you know, build, serve, whatever you want to do, but it's really an introduction. The next part though, which I'm not clear on, is there's an introduction. And then if they say, we'd like to meet with you, how many? Or there's also going to be some that we say, we want to meet with. Who's that list?
Well, do we want to meet with them or do we just want to ask them?
Both, that's what I'm saying. I actually think there might be a list.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is let's ask like heritage organizations, because there's a section on heritage in the OCP. Let's just specifically ask them. And your two organizations, would you please review the OCP and provide us with any comments about things you think that need to be changed or added?
So this is.
And if they don't respond, they don't
There's a
respond.
phase one
Yeah,
thing here, and then there's a phase two, and we're kind of bundling them together. For phase one, this is like a notification. This process is getting underway. This is an opportunity for you to provide initial feedback. When we actually have content, then that's when we have this list of ones that we reach out to, like the school district. Like we will want their specific feedback. We'll want coastal health's feedback, like those types of things, but until we have content that people actually provide feedback on,
Not for heritage and not for arts and culture, because those are sections, and not for tourism. We've got to ask them first, because then they're gonna come along after we provide a draft and say, you changed all this, but you didn't ask us for any input on what we'd like to see
but we're
changed.
not asking for specific input in phase one.
Well, they are. You look at those questions that get to it, it's pretty specific.
No, but like.
oh, you might be referring to the existing plan.
Yeah, I'm talking about the existing plan.
Yeah.
But you would say that to all the interest holders.
Yeah.
You would basically say, we're updating it, here's our existing plan, early feedback, whatever, and how you want to be engaged.
Yes.
So, and again, I think we're going back a little bit too. I wonder how McElhaney is going to frame this. And, you know, is there going to be a link to the initial OCP? In which when we do say reach out with an email to the Heritage Committee to say, we're really looking for your input, take the time to look at the original OCP. Please fill out the survey. We look forward to hearing from you. And just leaving it from a high level first blush perspective like that.
Like we can't write, 100 emails to each one of
I'm
these
not talking
groups.
about writing 100 emails. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the specific groups that are related to specific sections that are in the OCP.
Yeah.
So tourism is talked about in the OCP, economic development is talked about in the OCP, heritage is talked about in the OCP, and arts and culture is talked about. So those specific organizations, I think we should be asking them, what do you like in the current OCP? What's missing in the current OCP? Which were some of the questions that are in that survey.
That's gonna be, I presume, the content of the survey.
So again, I think it's funny because we're all imagining sort of what this looks like without knowing. But we need to see that draft. I think from McElhaney, the sooner the better, to just see how they're framing it. What information are they looking for?
Looking at Gibson's is a good idea.
So bringing this back, I guess
Now, a little bit of available.
we're basically,
If it's a
there's some sort of introduction going on to all interschool peers. And that. We'll have to see that at some point. They're not. It needs to be specific, it's probably a question for today. And then. We're gonna have to come back on engagement. I feel like we've lost track of.
Yeah, and it's used 11/26. I've been not super well keeping track of people having put their hands up, so when we come to the end, I wonder if we can do a review of what actions.
Can I put my name on it? I do need to. Excuse myself. I said I would talk with Bowen Waste and early at the possibility for doing a pop-up there when the busiest times would be. Right, and I can get back to next week. I'll do that early in the week and then beautifully by Wednesday. Does that work? Cool.
I have another item on here is trying to remember what that's like. This is. Definition.
Oh, Hannah was asking about what elements of the that talked about business.
Oh, right.
And you brought that up, and then the economic development committee will be engaged, and
Yeah, and I think our last committee of the whole meeting, we did talk a little bit about what the OCP now says about economic development and tourism, and knowing that we're going through this review now, so I think we're having our next committee meeting. I'm actually not entirely sure now because I had to duck out before the end of our meeting the other day, but certainly I know I've spoken very generally to the committee about the OCP engagement, so once the survey's out.
And one thing, I don't know if we needed the answer to this. You're the only other member of this committee on another council committee, right?
Am I?
So, yeah, I think so.
yeah, Betty was on transportation. Was on several.
Housing advisory. Okay. So are we done with item 5 then? 5.1? So 5.2. Running out of time.
Yeah, so I might just say quickly, it's like McElhaney had earlier provided background memos on infrastructure and land use, and this is, they produced an additional one on transportation.
So it's new, it's not a.
I don't think we've had it on the agenda before.
I lost that slide.
Will these background memos be shared?
For information.
Yeah, some information. I don't know if you're in planning, I don't know if you want to go through it. 5.3 was engagement materials discussion, and we left that as a chance to discuss like what we wanted to see in the content. I think we discussed that during this meeting, so we just wanted to make sure we had it flagged as like, we want to talk about what the plan is and what the is. And then I don't know if we then want to go to action items and next steps. So we have, like, but also in terms of it, we have our next meeting, April 28th. So I will contact the consultants, I'll give them our feedback on the plan and on suggested for timeline, including production material to us earlier, even if it's content and we understand it won't be graphically complete, but if we want to see the content earlier. And then we're recommending that actually the the survey launch being moved back a week, like each one moved back a week, so that the May 10th is like an early thing that happens. And then for our April 28th meeting, I will also bring like the essentially the Schedule A or Appendix A pop-up stuff. But we've done some work to reach out to people to figure out, okay, these are the schedules when these things could happen. So the bird could happen at this time, or the, you know, whatever else, the fire hall does something on this day, the clubhouse will work at this time. And then the 28th, we'll try to work to see if people want to volunteer for certain things that we can actually then like slot people into those times.
And if I can add to that, I mean, as you're starting to look at that, I mean, it's a long list, so you can, and there's only a certain amount of time, so feel free to make a recommendation of which one do you think really need to be done, so.
I think it's even because I'm aware of like, you know, a lot of them, it's like, oh, it'd be great to do on Saturday. It's like, well, there's so many Saturdays.
So you say, you make a list with the date and the time, and then we can just say if we're available.
Yeah, some might be a range, right? It's like the ferry lineup is like, you know, anytime at 7 o'clock, you could be here to do the ferry line any weekday. You know, it's not a set time. There's other things will be like the fire hall is holding an open house on this time.
Okay.
But again, just to say, if we're looking for volunteers, the more specific the date and the time, the better, because this is all gonna come upon us very quickly and.
I think some of it would be, you know, somebody said that, yes, this week I will do the ferry lineup on, you know, Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when. We will work to schedule committees. But I think like as staff, I'm comfortable doing those. To some extent, it's better coming from me as the staff person and I'm presenting to them, makes sense. And then individual engagement, we'll work on that initially, which might just be like part of the press release.
So the committees get the same list of days and times that we can volunteer, so to speak. It's the list that we send to us, right, to see our availability. We just send the same list to the committees.
No, the committees is like, I'll come to the 28th with like, hopefully at that point scheduled, like, this is when the, whatever, the different committees meet. This is when the advisory planning commission is going to meet in May. That advisory design planning meets. And then some people have signed up for Melanie has signed up to contact and Allison has signed up to contact.
I've got 2 minutes.
Yeah, two. Yeah, before we lose everyone. Yeah, so April 28th we'll meet, we will also circulate electronically when we have material from McElhaney, we will circulate for comment and kind of again, collect comment, provide the feedback. Yeah.
Okay, so those are our action items. Any other business?
Oh. I will go home and scan that, then email it down. Yes, you do. There's one thing in here I can't find. And I've got a comment on, it was the section in the survey, I thought, when they were talking about contacting residents and visitors. And I can't put my hand on it now. But it was page 5, but I think it was page 5 of the PDF. They talked about residents and seasonal visitors. But the people that come here every weekend that have second homes here aren't seasonal visitors. They're seasonal residents.
I think, I mean, our typical, when we've done surveys, we're breaking down, like, are you a full-time resident of Vaughan, are you a part-time resident of Vaughan?
Yeah, and there was somewhere else a comment about the fact.
Well, on page 6, it says info will be received from full-time residents, part-time residents, visitors. Is that the one you mean?
Yeah, what page are you on?
Page 6.
Oh, those.
Or 14 of 47.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah,
So
okay, no, it's different. It talked about maybe what I was reading online was the draft, I was reading the draft you sent around, so maybe there's been some
This is
changes.
the draft, this is.
Yeah,
draft.
because it talked about seasonal visitors.
But this is fine. This is fine.
Yeah.
Anything else? No, okay, So, as it's our next meeting via Zoom. Then we have some other meetings, one also scheduled for the 13th, so let's hope that stays. So. Do I have do we move this? To adjourn? No, we just adjourn? Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.